Hi, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here today and speak in this conference, share with you some of our work. Thank you very much, Tamar, for the invitation. This theme, the theme of the conference, is very close to my heart. In the past 12 years, we've been fortunate to work on some a few really interesting adaptive reuse projects were both in New York, Philadelphia, and Baltimore, Maryland. We've been mainly work on adaptive reuse of a post-industrial building within an urban context where there was a demand to convert these buildings through landmark dialogue, landmark preservation dialogue, to convert these industrial buildings into different uses such as high-end residential, conversion of storage spaces into more public uses. I will mainly share with you a project that I will focus on a project that we're designing right now in Baltimore, which is a music house, a conversion of an old 19th century metal factory into a music house. You know, along the east coast of North America, on a train ride between Boston, New York, Baltimore, down to Washington, D.C., one can see on the side of the road endless and abandoned buildings. One can see factories, warehouses, workshops, turbine buildings, chimneys, water and energy reservoirs. These buildings, for the most part, remain abandoned following the transformations and changes in the center of productions and employment since the Industrial Revolution to the present day. These buildings are of extraordinary qualities, are made mainly of brown bricks, glass, steel, and beautiful, beautiful copper flashing and roofs. They stand there silent as a reminder of a glorious past of commerce, manufacturing, and the life that is no more. Recently, as part of a change in environmental and political thinking, as well as local rezoning, many buildings and neighborhoods underwent and are undergoing right now a change and renewal of using these buildings into various uses and basically pouring new life and meaning into them. So this is something that happens all along the East Coast of America. Neighborhoods are changing, factories becoming residential buildings, turbine buildings, and reservoirs turns art and shopping centers, train stations toward museum, etc., etc. Cities becomes a place for people to, these neighborhoods become much more of art-oriented neighborhoods. So this is some scenes from Dumbo. This is the project that we worked on. This is basically a daylight factory, the former Brillo factory that was built in 1920th. It's a very simple daylight type factory where basically all around the perimeter of the building, there is a big windows. However, the windows are positioned 5 feet above the finished floor, so machinery can be placed in the parameter and people can actually work using natural daylight. Obviously, the neighborhood, as I said, has changed, and we were asked to convert this building from a daylight factory manufacturing of the former Brillo factory, which is basically a product of metal wool, into apartments, residents. So we worked with landmark preservation in trying to adapt the facade and enlarge the windows and take care of the facade so the building can become an residential building. So we work with Landmark to lower the windows so people can actually sit down and look at the street outside. Here you can see this special window. This used to be a bridge for transfers of goods. We also added 2 stories above the mass of the building, so it won't be visible from the public way. We set back it by 15 feet. And obviously the addition is much more open. Some interior spaces of the project. We can see the windows here and kind of the architecture that try to work with the historical context. In Baltimore, we were asked to work together with Pompeii and Olive Oil, which is a wonderful organization, which is the first historical olive oil imported to the United States. The owner of Pompeii and Olive Oil is a man of great vision, and he asked me to convert a 19th century storage space into a visitor center, a place where people can come and taste and enjoy the knowledge of olive oil. This is the storage space, which has kind of a raw concrete floor and steel columns and wood brick envelope and wood ceiling. We make place for a beautiful amphora collection, ancient amphora collection that the factory has. And we find places within the visitor center that still walk and create a dialogue between the old amphoras. And there is also a tasting stations where people can actually come and taste olive oil. There is a very specific way of designing such rooms. You can see under the shelves there is a red light, and apparently there's an idea that the senses are connected. The vision, the smell, and the taste are connected. So in order to really taste the olive oil, one needs to blur the color so it won't affect the taste. So there's kind of a very specific rules of how to design these tasting stations. The next project is one project that is under construction right now. It's on the historical district of Tribeca. This image is from the 1940s. There are 2 7-story buildings and one garage building that it's 1 story that basically used to be a spice factory. Up until 2 years ago, this building were hosting all the spices, all the herbs that came to Manhattan. And a developer purchased this building. We went through a very long landmark conversation and dialogue, which I love. And we were together, came up with a concept for the project. This is a view from Leonard Street. This is, here we can see the garage building that wraps around the corner between Leonard Street and Varick Street. That's the view from Varick Street. Some images from the construction. We are introducing completely new structure, interior structure to the building to meet with earthquake code and with fire code. There's beautiful cornice to the building that we are cleaning up and maintaining. We're going to repoint the entire brick facade and work on the facade, the lintels that need work, and the windows, which we're going to double glaze, but obviously keep the patterns of the windows. As we work with Landmark, we also work in materiality and kind of the overall tones of the building. This is an image from the interiors. And the last project I'm going to show you, which maybe I'll dive a little bit deeper, is a very, very important project to us. It's a great collaboration with master cellist Amit Peled. He is a professor in the Peabody Institute in Baltimore, and he has this great vision of bringing classical music to different parts of Baltimore's, to lower social economical layers of Baltimore's. And he has this vision, and he came up with some connection with patrons, and they were gracious enough to purchase the building, which was a metal bending factory from the 19th century. And he approached me and asked me to work together on this project with him. The idea is that the students or the musician will actually live in the campus, and the building will be able to open its gates to the neighborhood and become part of the neighborhood. And that way, people will get exposed to the events and to the life that this building will create. So the building is on Gutman Avenue, which is an area, it's a very mixed area. It's, as you can see, there's the train rails running through, and there's a band of old factories and some residential blocks. The building is, interesting enough, is within a residential building, but there is one lot which is bigger, and the factory was basically within a residential block, which is highly interesting. And the building is a simple factory, brick factory with very little openings. It's run down. It's been abandoned for quite a long time. And by the way, most of the buildings on the street are abandoned. And as you can see, the building has a few interventions along the time. And we were together with Amit, we came up with this kind of a narrative for the project, that we're envisioning an architecture that communicates a sense of acceptance, an uplifting assembly of spaces, illuminating the complexity of the program. So that was maybe the first kind of quick sketch I did. That it's kind of a very naive sketch, speaking about an architecture and a garden and the way they start to come together, sort of like a yin and yang kind of assembly. I also kind of looked at the way the energy within the building will flow, the sounds within this resonant box, and the way the street flow through. And this is an idea again of how this kind of L-shaped architecture with music and the garden and the connection to the street will happen. So we have quite a unique program for this project. We have on the ground floor, basically on the historical fabric, we have all the public areas. We're going to have a foyer, rehearsal spaces, a stage that can accommodate 20 musicians, a kitchen, a common area, and then on the floor above, which is going to be the addition, we're going to have the residence for 15 musicians and a guest for a master class. So we sort out the historical building, and we start to break the pieces that are less valuable and maintain the ones that are more valuable within the historical fabric of the building. So here we have the architectural assembly of the L shape of the historical fabric, and obviously the garden and the way they start to speak to another. So we kept the historical brick wall that we felt are more valid, and we removed the one that were built later, mainly in the 70s and the 80s, fabric that is not as valuable. We add pieces to it, and we add halls and stairs and other spaces. We start to organize the public areas, the stage, the kitchen, the communal kitchen, and the rehearsal room facing the street. Then kind of analyze the way people will interact from the street with the project and the entries. So one can step into a garden and from a garden into the building. The fans can open up and start to have the street get into the building and into the garden. This is an idea of the way sound will flow through the building. The way the building open up on times where there's a vent and the stage can start extending out into the garden. There are a couple of formations that can happen. And there's a really nice mezzanine that people can climb up and look down, and a place for the musicians to mingle, basically. This is the modern addition, where we have 14 units for the musicians, private rooms, sort of like a boarding school assembly. And this is the building. So here we see the old factory and the context and the new addition. The building can open up in times of event and create this wonderful square and openness on one hand, and the way the music flow out into the street, and the garden that can at time can be closed, at a time can be open to the people. We can see how the building is able to open up and allow people to sit down and enjoy a concert. This is the stage room where one can see how the old and the new architectural assembly happening. The brick shell and the carefully placed steel and wood new assembly. These are the building sections. There's a very delicate connection between more intimate spaces and the stage space and the rehearsal spaces. The building can open and close to allow for an acoustical separation between the different spaces. And thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and good luck with the event. Thank you so much. Thank you.